Hey everybody, it's Romania Black. We're on episode 19 of Moriarty the Patriot, the White Knight of London, Act 1. So we just had the Merchant of London, and now we have the White Knight of London. So last episode, we got to see how our murder man was a murder child. But more than that, William Moriarty was much more than that. Last episode was great. Just seeing how even as a kid, he was basically a prodigy and like ahead of his time, solving cases, using Shakespeare as a reference. It was great. I really enjoyed the last episode and seeing William Moriarty just kind of like put to shame this noble, even from back when he was like 10 years old, he could still put nobles to shame. So it was really good. And I felt like it was a good episode to showcase Moriarty's strengths and his sense of justice, how he fights for his cause and what he believes in, and is not afraid to do so by any means necessary. By reading the fine print. Moriarty is the one that reads the fine print on the contract before he signs on the dotted line. Absolutely. And also establishing that Milverton is going to be his nemesis, supposedly, because for some reason Moriarty's on a list that he's got. I'm assuming that Milverton, since he's been outed as being a nemesis to Moriarty, and since Sherlock wants to find out who the Lord of Crime is, which is Moriarty, that I feel like we're gonna have this three-way war. We're gonna have Sherlock over in this corner, and then Moriarty in this corner, and then Milverton in this corner. So it's gonna be very interesting to see what all goes down, because we're in the third act. We're in the final act of the series. Like, this is starting out. We got 6 episodes left, so it's the beginning of the end. And so I'm like, okay, what are we setting up? What's the Moriarty plan? What are we setting up with this? We took this convenient episode off last episode to build up Moriarty, so now we're back into the present. What are we gonna do? So I'm really curious. When I think of White Knight of London, I think of Sherlock or Lestrade. And so I think of, especially Lestrade, like Sherlock maybe is not the White Knight of London, even though William kind of framed him as that at the start of this when they first got Sherlock involved. But when I think of a White Knight, I think more of Lestrade, who's the more like pure, lawful, good character, and Sherlock's a little bit more chaotic good. So, interesting, right? So I'm curious to see what all ends up happening, but let's dive into this. Act 1, so you know it's at least a 2-parter, but I'm pretty excited to see what all goes down. So let's not waste any more time, shall we? We are going to start Moriarty the Patriot, episode 19, and we're going to start that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Okay. Oh, this was a good episode. Somebody commented back in episode 17 on Patreon. They were like, well, enjoy this episode. It's the last calm one. I was like, last calm one? I was like, wait, what? So, man, Mr. Adam Whiteley, I very much get Harvey Dent vibes from him. Very much Harvey Dent vibes, like in The Dark Knight. Very much get the same vibes from old Whiteley. And so this episode is intriguing. There's lots of different things because we're now in the final act. There's lots of different things being set up in this episode that is going to carry on into the final act here, the final part for this series. And the first thing they bring up is the children acting like, and I like that throughout this episode you see kind of the same characters again, like the guy here in the store. I'm pretty sure you see him in the crowd later on, but they're talking about how the kids are imitating the Lord of Crime, and Lewis hears this, that they're beating other kids up and saying that they're doing it in the name of the Lord of Crime. He did it, so it's okay. And there's a commentary there, and Lewis seems kind of intrigued by it because the man's like, I wish the kids would start emulating this young MP instead, this young Parliament member, Adam Whiteley, who's the White Knight. And so there is something to be said of that because, yeah, what Lewis and them are doing, what Moriarty is doing is essentially trying to start a revolution and change society. But the whole crime and everything is like, it's a theatrical, it's a means to an end. It's mostly theatrics, right? I mean, yeah, people are dying, but it's a theatrical. It's not real. The real thing is reforming society. This is just a means to get the ball rolling and to gain attention around it. But kids don't know that. Little kids don't realize what politics are. They don't realize the dredges of government and things like that. When you're 8 years old, you don't care, right? You may hear about government, but you don't care. Unless you're like a prodigy or just somebody that's super into it as a kid, sure. But these kids in this story, presumably, they don't get the whole political angle of it. They just are pretending to be Lord of Crime because they hear their parents and other people talking about it. And so they think he's like a Robin Hood figure. And that's like a fantastical story character. It doesn't involve like the dregs of society and politics and things like that. But yeah, there's a point to that ideally, you would think Moriarty and them would want someone like Whiteley to be in the picture who can successfully and safely enact the legislation the way that they're trying to do it in a societally acceptable way that's not crime necessarily. So that's intriguing. And so yeah, I want to skip over our OP here. But yeah, Whiteley, he's such an intriguing character because he seems like nothing phases him. And when you see his motivation, because at first he seems very, very, I was like, is he really truly this genuine? And he is. He's very dedicated to his cause. He's good at reading people. He understands the cost of what it takes to get this stuff enacted. And he's smart too. He's really smart. Like he smells the fuse that's about to go off with the bomb in the carriage, and he recognizes the man in the crowd that's the killer, or that's the attempted assassin. But you have to think, I thought to myself throughout most of this episode at the beginning, I'm like, okay, well, what's his driving force? He has to have something driving him to do good. And it's Sam. It's his brother. And it all makes sense. It all makes sense. Because from his perspective, he's seeking equality for people like his brother who are marginalized. And he knows, being a family member of somebody that has like a physical disability, he knows how they're marginalized and he wants to make the world a better place for them and more equal to them. Makes sense because yeah, the ruling class, they make the rules for everybody else. So he's like, if we can make it to where people vote, then people like my brother can vote for those changes and enact change that will benefit people like him. So I totally get it. My best friend has a physical disability and I've been friends with her for years, for like 15 years. We've been best friends, and just traveling with her and seeing how she experiences the world, it opens your eyes, like seeing that perspective. There's so much I know in our country, I'm from the US, there's so much in our country that's not accessible. So I about cried. Like I was getting emotional when all the kids show up at the park, because I know what that's like. Like I've watched my best friend not be able to do things because where we go isn't accessible. And I'm like, and it sucks because you take, if you're, able-bodied, it's easy to take advantage of everything. Like a set of stairs, like, oh, I'll just walk up a set of stairs. She can't do that. So if we go into an old building that's not accessible, we can't go inside because it's just not physically possible. So when they were at the park, I was like, oh my gosh, like that's such a big deal. Because if you know someone that has like a disability and they are, have like a marginalization against them, or they don't have that accessibility, then that's everything to them. That's like making the world an equal space for them. So I totally get his motivation. No, I get it. I was like, oh my God, no. And it's his brother on top of that. That's the other thing too, is that it's his brother. So we have a lot of things with brothers going on the last couple episodes. And we've had Mycroft and Sherlock like off in the distance, even though they're not very close. But then the last episode we had Lewis and William. We had the two brothers in the orphanage. And in this episode, I would argue we have Sam and Adam, and we also have Albert and William, because Lewis kind of takes a little back seat in this episode. He's at the beginning and then he kind of takes a back seat, and Albert gets to shine in this episode with William. So we have another set of brothers to go along with Sam and Adam. So it's interesting. It's a commentary on like the importance of family and that they will do anything for their family because they mean that much to them. So I like that we spin this. We get the spin in the story here about, is the White Knight a swindler peddling equality? So they think that he staged the whole explosion to make himself look good. Like they're trying to spin it any way he can. And I forgot that Albert was a member of the House of Lords. So he has a stake in all this, right? He's the upper nobility that this reform would reflect too. But again, you would think this is what they want, right? And Albert even makes a comment. He's like, I don't think there's anything shady about Mr. Whiteley. I think he seems pretty genuine. He has unquestionable integrity. But he's like, how far does he intend to carry on under the banner of equality, right? The banner of equality. And then he asks William what he thinks. And William's like, the bomber was most likely a mobster hired by the House of Lords, which we'll find out Milverton is hired as well by the House of Lords, which is interesting. And so then we cut to the interrogation room where we had the people interrogating interrogating the would-be killer, and then you see Paterson in the background, like watching from a distance. The Prime Minister's post will be his. So what they say here, if the connection is made to the House of Lords, then he becomes a standard bearer for a popular revolution. So yeah, they're basically saying if anybody finds out that this would-be assassin was tied to the House of Lords and they have ties to the mafia, then it's going to cause a ruckus, right? And then the election reform that he wants will be his, and the Prime Minister's post will be his for the taking. So yeah, so if this gets out, then he's going to get what he wants. And it'd be the perfect position for Whiteley. Interesting. On the other hand, political and social unrest within the country will increase, and the lives of many people could easily be lost to violence and mayhem. So yeah, but it's curious because here's the thing. Yeah, it's very possible that what Whiteley is trying to do is going to cause unrest. It's going to cause rioting and violence and mayhem. But I'm like, that's kind of, I guess Moriarty's arguing that what they're doing is getting rid of the upper echelon. Like the working class isn't going to care about the upper echelon being gone. It's fine. And it's a different way that they're trying to spark reform. But the end goal is the same. So I'm like, it's interesting. Whether or not this is a situation he is hoping for is something I would like to test about him. So that's what Moriarty wants to test. Moriarty's like, is he willing to go so far as to cause social and civil unrest for the sake of, like, how egotistical is Whiteley? Is he willing to do whatever it takes to get his job done, or does he care about the people as well? Because that's the thing. Moriarty's, their whole thing is that they care about the people, so that's why they target the nobles and trying to kind of, expose the system and how corrupt it is. But it's like, is Whiteley, where does he draw the line at? What's his goals? So that's what they're wanting to test. I get it now. Okay. And then, yeah, Moran's like, equality, any politician who carries on about anything so lofty is not on the level. But I'm like, you guys are all striving for equality in a similar vein too, so it's not that far-fetched. And then, yeah, he's like, well, we can't say that for sure, right? It depends on how Whiteley acts. This country may be led to equality without any need of help from us. So yeah, it's like, depending on how he acts and how he handles things, he may be able to spark this revolution, and it may be that Moriarty and them don't have to do anymore, or they don't have to go to the lengths that they thought they would. So that's interesting. But yeah, so they killed off, so the one guy that is the would-be assassin, he's dead. He did. And so the officer killed him, because at the end, one of Milverton's men killed the officer. And so yeah, Whiteley's upset about it. And I like Paterson has hair all slicked back, but now that he's the head of Scotland Yard, he's like let his hair go down. It's like much more unkempt. It looks much more shaggy. I like it. And Whiteley is upset that this guy's died. And Paterson tries to like apologize for it, but he's like, okay, yeah. He's like, I find it unlikely that a mobster would kill himself out of loyalty for the House of Lords. Like, why would he just kill himself? So yeah, that's what Whiteley's like. I don't think this guy would just kill himself out of loyalty for the House of Lords because he's a mobster. So why would he go that far? What's the point? But then if that's not the case, then someone within Scotland Yard killed him. So, which is what happened. So there's a rat in the nest. There's a rat in the house, right? And so he's like, Chief Inspector Paterson, I need to do my own investigation, but I'm choosing who comes with me. Like, I need to choose people I can trust. It's like, okay. And Paterson's like, I guess? He's like, okay. Also, I just realized this. Paterson's hair kind of looks like Bond's. Is he fanboying over Bond? Is he just a little bit? That's kind of funny if he was. It'd be funny if he was. And yeah, Whiteley's like, I'm a good judge for character. Right? So, okay, we go to the London Courier. Okay, the London Courier, the papers. Yep, this article won't do. We are high class. Mr. President of the Courier. He's the president of the papers. Of course he is. He's the one putting out all the articles. Milverton. Okay, he puts the spin on everything. If only they'd come to me sooner. sending threats via mobsters and attempted assassins. That's not how you should do business. If they'd killed Whiteley at that moment, he would have been the hero who died a martyr for the great cause of equality. Yep, no, he's right. He's like, if they'd actually, he's like, the House of Lords is going about it all the wrong way. If they had killed him then and there while he was on good speaking terms with everybody, then he'd be a martyr, and that would just further the revolution. No. Yeah, that's not how we should function. An utter pack of fools. There's no call for such a sloppy move. And like going up this elaborate, Titanic Kate Winslet staircase. Milverton here. I've been hired by the House of Lords to dispose of Whiteley. And I'll carry out my task in my own way. And I love that everybody has their own version of Watson, right? You have the one guy, the dark-haired guy that walks with Whiteley, and you have this guy that takes Milverton's coat and hat. Yep. Once again, yes, I will smear this good man Whiteley and drag him down from his righteous knight spot and watch his dramatic downfall from the best seats in the house. Oh, man. Okay, so Whiteley's in charge of the papers, and that's how he gets you. It's not through violence, necessarily, although I believe by the end of it there's some violence involved, but he's gonna do the gossip column. He's gonna smear your good name and make everyone turn on you with what they read in the papers. Gee, it's not at all relatable to modern day. Not at all, right? And you can watch the dramatic downfall from the best seats in the house. Yep. And no one is suspect. Genius. I love it. I love that Milverton's with the papers. It's like Moriarty has a guy in the Scotland Yard. He's got people spread all about his organization, but one place he doesn't have people is in the papers. And that's where Milverton is. So that's interesting. Fascinating. Okay. So I like this conversation where they have the papers and we find out that that's actually, I love the scene between Albert and Moriarty here where it's basically the connections to the mobsters that he's going to give Whiteley. And I love the fact that he puts his hand, Albert does, on Moriarty's shoulders. I love that like little tender moment between the brothers. And he's like, I hope that he, like us, is someone who can move forward despite the accompanying pain. That's such foreshadowing, especially with the end of this episode. That's such foreshadowing because, yeah, you have Albert and William and Lewis who are like, we had to kill people and sacrifice to get here. Is Whiteley going to be the same? If his brother dies, if Sam dies, is he going to be able to carry forward with his plan or is he going to implode? That's the question. Are they going to drag the knight down by striking him where it hurts the most? That's the trick, right? Oh, buddy. I also feel really bad because ever since, for like episodes now, ever since people pointed out that arsenic was used to dye clothes green, and I only see Albert like the green robe and everything, I'm like, maybe you shouldn't wear green all the time. Black's an accent color. Wear that instead. But yeah, that's what the test is, to see if he will. And then, yeah, they go to this nice estate. There's Maggie the maid. Like, they have a nice setup. It's really great. And at the time, I was like, well, then why is... He's, like, not a nobleman necessarily, but he has a nice house. And he has really a nice estate. So why is he fighting for equality? What is there to him? And it's his brother. That's who he's fighting for. But also, that damn pie. That damn pie in the middle is like something that would be in the Great British Bake Off. Like, that thing's huge. And then so Inspector Robinson and Sturridge. So for a second I thought it was Lestrade, but it's not. It's Sturridge. And they're sitting there with his secretary, his live-in. Or maybe it's his... I don't think it's his brother, though. Yeah, it's like he's his personal Watson, basically. So I do feel for Sam in this because Sam... It's almost like Sam feels like Whiteley is doing all this because of him, which he is. For a lot of reasons. But I feel like Sam feels guilty because he's like, brother, you're receiving all these threatening mail and you're getting assassination attempts and you have all this discrimination against you and all these people hate you. And it's just, you're doing this because of me. He's like, I'm not worth it. Like, stop trying to hurt your reputation. He's like, Maggie and I are worried about you. Like, you need to stop doing this while you can. And he just doesn't, he's so hell-bent on his like sense of justice and equality that he doesn't really listen to Sam and what he has to say. He says he understands his concerns, but Sam's like, it's still not, like Sam feels guilty about it. And, Adam tries to be like, well, I'm not going to back down from cowards. Don't worry about me. And Sam's like, well, that's not it. And so, yeah, he says, once this bill passes and things change, I know a world of equality will be coming where you'll be free of this toil. And Sam, the way that Sam acts, he's like, I'm not in toil. It's fine. And here's the thing. I can kind of see where Sam's coming from, because Sam's like, we have a nice house. We have a maid. I have all these things that are accessible. He's like, you don't have to do this all under the name of me. Like, for the sake of me. He's like, because, yeah, he's like, just admit that you're doing this for yourself, that you want the equality. Don't attach my name to it. Don't use me. I'm not like, he's like, I don't want to be the martyr or the poster boy. And so I totally get where Sam's coming from, where Sam's trying to tell his brother, like, hey, don't just attach my name to it to make yourself look good. Like, just do this because you want to do it, not because you think I want to do it. Like, it's fascinating. And then he doesn't get a chance to speak because everybody else is like, yeah, your brother's trying to change the world. We've taken on the responsibility to protect him. Like, ha ha ha. And then Sam's like, I just want you all to be doing this for your own reasons, not for me. Yeah, I feel for Sam. And if they attack him, I'm not getting good vibes. Not getting good vibes at all. When he was out there in the open telling his brother to take care, and it's like, I hate that. He's like, come back safely, take care. I'm like, is this the last time we're going to see this kid alive? Probably. I'm not ready for that. I don't want that. Nope. Off we go. And when that kid was sitting out there looking, I was like, is this the last time we're going to see that kid? Is he going to get like sniped off right then and there? And then, yeah, I love that Maggie says, I'm sure he'll be fine. And it's like, I'm not worried about Whiteley. I'm worried about this kid getting killed. So North Cross Park. So the whole thing with the park, the Parliament people are like, well, his plans and everything, they made us go over budget and they made us be delayed and everything. We were just trying to build you all a park, and he, delayed things and made it near impossible. And the reality of the situation is that he was trying to make the park better and was trying to make the park the most accessible it could be. And I'm sure that what he was getting at is that the park as it was originally intended probably wasn't accessible. It was probably cheaply made, and it was just something that wasn't going to stand up and hold the test of time. And Whiteley's like, no, I want something it's like an Alexander Hamilton thing. He's like, I want something that's going to outlive my name, He's like, I want this to be perfect, and if it smears my name to get it done, so be it. That's very much his mentality. He's like, whatever happens, he's like, I'll be a martyr. I'll go down in flames. As long as my vision becomes a reality, I'm fine. And that's kind of his whole point there, because the secretary's like, why didn't you talk back to them? And he's like, it, one, wouldn't have done any good. Two, it would have probably caused like a big stir. And he's like, that's not the point. The point is that I got the mission done, and I'll do whatever it takes to do it, even if I have to stand up to these people and take the brunt of their, complaints and everything else. So yeah, I really respect Whiteley a lot in this episode, and he gets Moriarty's attention too when he doesn't refute it. And Moriarty's like, oh, like he has like an unshakable resolve, right? An unshakable resolve to the point where at the very end there, like he doesn't even deny anything. He's just like, yep, that's what happened. Glad y'all noticed. Cool. But then at the end, the park is open up, and the secretary's like, why would you do that? And he's like, look, it's for the kids. This is what I wanted to see. The smile on those children's faces are everything, because they remind him of his brother. I've accomplished my goal, and that's all that matters. And the secretary's like, sir, that's great and all, but the townspeople aren't going to know that. You're just going to... He's like, you need to keep your reputation good so that you can keep doing projects like this. Otherwise, people aren't going to give you a chance to do anything else. And that's when Albert shows up with the ties to the mobsters in the House of Lords. I love that when you see him, like his hat like tips over and his whole face like floods into darkness. I love it. So Albert basically gave the fox the key to the hen's house. Said, here's the ties to the mafia. Do what you want with them. I too want to call. And he doesn't outright say that he's tied to the Lord of Crime. He doesn't outright involve Whiteley, but he does establish that he's like, I too am fed up with the system. So here's your proof. This is what you need to get the job done. What are you going to do with it? And it's like, okay. You will be conducting backroom dealings with the House of Lords. And then, yeah, Whiteley's like, this puts you in a difficult position. Why would you do this? And Albert's like, I kind of have the same goal as you, so I really don't care. And plus, I got lots of money. I'll just go hide out somewhere. It's fine. And he's like, I'm sure you'll not use this evidence of injustice to further your own honor. Like, you're gonna do the noble thing with it, right? And I love that he's later still looking at the paperwork while they're all in the carriage and nobody else is paying attention to him. As long as you remain who you are now, I will stand with you. That's all. He's like, so as long as your character stays the same, then we're together in this. And Whiteley's like, okay. And I love that William and Albert both have like the similar canes, like showing up together. And William and Albert's like, he's such a pleasant man. So yeah, William put this whole thing together to make certain of Mr. Whiteley's humanity, like to make certain that he was of integrity and like a good moral fiber, that he'd be able to handle this power that they've given him. And William notes it. He's like, okay, the power we've given him, like, it is going to involve some difficult choices, because he's going to have to think how to use this power, like how to use his trump card when he needs to. How is it going to affect Albert? Is it going to get out that Albert gave him that information? Like, there's a lot of factors in motion now, and they're really depending on Whiteley to make a just decision and to use that information wisely. Which you would think he would be. You would think he would, up until we get the thing about the brother at the end. And then, yeah, Albert and them note that if we had done nothing without the power that we've given him, he would just become stagnant, right? He would be destined to be eliminated eventually. So we had to make a push to help get the objective accomplished. And that's when Albert says there's always a price to be paid to achieve any objective. So yeah, so the price that Whiteley paid to get the park done was to have his name ran through the ground and to be blamed for all the extra expenditures and the delay and everything. But the point is, the objective was achieved. He had to pay the price of having his name dragged through the mud, but the objective was achieved. And so Albert's tying his character in terms of that to their own character. He's like, it all the more becomes true when it comes to the colossal goal of transforming this nation. So yeah, he's like, we have to do what's willing to be done and understand the consequences of it to achieve our goals. And he's hoping that Whiteley is the same. But I don't know. I don't think that Whiteley envisions London on fire like what the Moriarty brothers do. Because Albert and William, they both see the same thing. They both see London on fire, just like their house, and it in ruins. Okay. Yeah, the two brothers. Off to go get Lewis, I'm sure. And yeah, both Albert and William have the same fire in their eyes. The same exact fire. Okay. But then, yeah, oh my God. We cut to the very end of this episode, and the one guy getting his, like, face squeezed in, Game of Thrones style. And so the officer's like, I killed the criminal who went after Whiteley. Oh God. But no, yep. Ugh. And they just got rid of the witness. So this guy looks like a former wrestler or fighter that was in prison and now he's working for Milverton. And then this shady cat shows up. Mr. Milverton instructed us to make sure this officer's body would be found, to put it in somewhere suitable. So I get the impression, if I'm going to make a staggering guess, I get the impression that this big guy, the man in the iron mask here, he's probably going to have to fight like Moran or something. Well, he probably have to fight like Moran. And then this guy here, the next target, he seems like, oh, his face is very interesting, like his eyes and everything. I'm like, he looks like a Fred, like the Fred equivalent. So it's like Fred Moran. It's Milverton's version of Fred Moran right here. Oh no. Sam Whiteley. And he's not in the wheelchair in that picture. He's just sitting there. I'm terrified. I'm like, don't you go after that kid, you monsters. That's what I'm afraid of. I'm like, if they kill his brother, like his whole reason for doing all this, I don't like it. I don't like stories where you have the beautiful white knight and the fall from grace. Like, those stories are so hard because it's like, no, they're such a good character, and why are you dragging him down with you? No! Like, those stories always get me. So next episode's probably going to be a doozy, isn't it? Ugh. Great. Great. So yeah, that'll be a fun time. But okay. Well, This is a really good episode. I really liked this episode a lot. And I'm pretty excited about what's going to come next. I'm nervous because I don't want Sam to die, but he's going to be their target. I really thought instead of Sturridge and Robinson that he was going to get Sherlock involved, but Sherlock may be a little too chaotic for Whiteley. He needs something. That's why I thought Lestrade was going to come in at first about it. So that's interesting. But I'm going to be really curious next episode, like what we're going to do with this. I don't want Sam to die, but I'm like, they're going to try to, if they're going to target Whiteley and make him go crazy, that's what it would take. And I'm not ready to see that. So, fun times! Pretty excited. I'm very curious to know your thoughts down below. Please, no spoilers, but it's going to be interesting, y'all. And I'm pretty excited. So, I hope y'all enjoyed this reaction. I'm curious to know your thoughts down below. But yeah, in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'm hyped, y'all. Next week, episode 20, The White Knight of London, Act 2. I'll see y'all then. Bye.